For the first time in our post-independence history, the celebration of Belize's political freedom has been subdued. COVID-19, since arriving on our shores earlier this year, has severely impacted our way of life, including the traditional manner in which we observe September 21st. At a time when the country is still battling the ravages of the pandemic, the pomp and circumstance associated with Independence Day was noticeably absent. Perhaps the absence of such flair allowed for sharper focus to be placed on messages delivered by our political leaders, whose respective addresses revolved around the disease and its effect on our people. Prime Minister Barrow, in speaking to a virtual audience from Belmopan, spoke on some of the challenges that have arisen from COVID-19.
I remember the debate that raged about the reopening of the PGIA. Many of us feared that the return of the tourists would mean importing the virus, multiple cases of foreign infection. As it turned out, though, our problem proved not to be external. Like that old horror movie trope, the scary thing was not what was threatening to invade from without or tightly shuttered home. It was rather the danger from within. The jumpers and the contrabandistas obstinately and repeatedly going across our supposedly sealed borders to places where the proliferation and danger were astounding.
Aside from the perils of exposure to the new coronavirus, opposition leader John Briceño, who has conventionally used the platform to criticize government, spoke of other dangers, particularly those that affect our country's many resources.
There is no doubt that the coronavirus has hit us hard. Not just us, we have seen and felt the entire world experience seismic changes. But it was not just the virus that has brought our nation to the proverbial cliff edge. We were already there. For nearly 13 years, Belizeans have witnessed unprecedented corruption, cronyism, nepotism, and mismanagement of the economy and our precious resources. A small group of well-connected UDPs have plundered the treasury, stolen the people's lands, and prostituted Belizean nationality. The record of this UDP administration is one of betrayal, scandal, and mismanagement.
In spite of his administration being denounced by the leader of the People's United Party, PM Barrow was optimistic in his outlook that the number of COVID-19 cases will continue to decline in the days and weeks ahead.
Notwithstanding all this, I am certain that we will defeat this COVID-19. Even as I speak, there is qualified good news. That is because the testing record over the last month or so shows a trending deceleration of positive cases. On Saturday, there were just 16 positives from 256 samples. I believe that's about a 6.25%. Now, Sunday, it came back up a little bit over 10%, but still a far cry from where it was about a month or so ago, when in 1 week there was a more than 40% jump in the percentage positives from the samples tested. The phenomenon of indiscipline, the lax or willful behavior that contributed to the new outbreaks is, I think, receding. The rapid tests that will allow for ease of mass detection and contact tracing are steadily becoming more reliable. And the vaccines that will provide immunity now appear within reach.
In a moment of unanimity, both the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition hailed the resolve of the Belizean people, acknowledging their resilience in times of great hardship.
Another thing we must do is face the coronavirus pandemic determined not to allow fear or the uncertainty of this time to overcome us. Most importantly, we cannot allow it to change who we are as a people. We are formidable Belizean men and women who will endure the pandemic of 2020 just as our ancestors endured the pandemic of 1918. We will endure this and all the hardships of our time as they endured the hardships of their time. And just like our great-grandparents, we will bounce back because of our indomitable spirit, which will not be broken.
Listing various initiatives undertaken in the fight against the pandemic, PM Barrow, in his swan song as three-time Prime Minister, also retreaded government's efforts at tackling COVID-19.
We preemptively discontinued cruise ship arrivals even before the closing of the PGIA. We directed a national lockdown in the initial stage, and we have subsequently isolated as necessary cluster-affected communities. We have tested aggressively, and we have legislated comprehensively the required behavioral safety infrastructure and surveillance. At every juncture, government has consulted broadly. We formed the National Oversight Committee right at the start and have always sought the best available local and international scientific advice to guide our decision making.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.